Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. This is Josef Katz, and I'm here with one of my favorite people, Mary Crean. Mary, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I do appreciate that you called me one of your favorite people, because that's definitely a compliment, because like the saying goes, good people know good people.
So, Mary, I'm excited because we're getting to do another show together.
We are.
What are we going to talk about today?
Oh, we're going to talk about quite a bit, and our guest that I'd love to introduce is Theresa Cantley, and she was a referral, as many of our guests are, from the Catherine Chadwick. I have to give her some props here. Theresa, she's a former corporate marketing director turned CEO, investor, author, small business advisor. I also know she has a podcast, as she briefly said before we hit the record button. And she's built a brick and mortar hospitality businesses, led turnarounds, stood beside leaders navigating everything from high growth chaos to cultural breakdown. Well, I think some of us have experienced that. And now she helps founders and CEOs rebuild from the inside out, because what's happening inside your business will always show up outside of it. And Theresa, I could not agree more. And we focus on perhaps business owners or individual CEOs that are probably maybe the last chapter, second chapter, or going on third chapter. So I think this is a very pertinent conversation. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Theresa, and then we'll go on with our questions.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored to be here. And Catherine is a great person, so I'm going to give her some props too. As in my introduction, I did come from corporate America. I worked in laboratory equipment, came in as customer service, knew nothing about science, and worked my way up. I failed every science class I ever took. I always joke around about this. And I ended up running a molecular biology division for the equipment, telling people how to do electrophoresis with our machines and do polymerase chain reactions, clone DNA. I joke around because I'm like, I failed every single science class I ever took. Like, I had no idea, but I was so obsessed with this and learned it. So I worked my way up, and I ended up being the director of marketing and actually operations as well. And at the same time, my best friend and I, who I worked with, we decided to start our first business during the recession of 2008. So we opened up a brick and mortar retail store. Everybody thought we were nuts. And then I saw that so many different small business owners, people who had left corporate, opened up their business and sunk everything into it, and they were struggling. So I decided, you know what? These people, I think I can help them, which is how we ended up starting the consulting business that I have now. I left corporate in 2014 and we jumped right into entrepreneurship. And so now I work with primarily brick and mortar businesses, mostly hospitality, but I've worked with lawyers and accountants' offices and, everything in between. And I really help them. They're people who have grown their business to a certain level, and they are either stuck or things are starting to break down, and they have done things the same way for forever and ever. And now it's time to change and time to build a team. And a lot of the people that I work with are people who are in their 50s and aren't really sure what to do. They don't have a succession plan. They're not really sure what is going to happen with their business, what direction to go. And that's where I jump in. And I call it, people ask me, what do you do? And I say, I fix businesses. Well, how do you fix them? Well, we work on building from the inside out. And really, that can go with anything really in life, building from the inside out, defining yourself from the inside out. So that's really what I do.
So I'm going to jump in, if that's okay, Mary. So we recorded an episode recently where we talked about surrounding yourself with weirdos, or I forgot the words we used. So I think, and I've been in the startup space a long time over my career. So anyone who's starting a business or doing that, has to have something a little bit off, because it's not easy. It's hard. It takes a lot of work. You got to be creative. You got to push through a lot of obstacles. You talked about being stuck, which I think everyone gets to at some point. So maybe we could just focus on, you mentioned people in their 50s being, kind of, maybe it's your core clientele. Mm-hmm. How are you helping them, get unstuck? I mean, it seems to be a recurring theme with people on our show talking about being stuck. And I think Mary and I learn something new each time someone offers advice.
Interesting. So yeah, when I'm working with them, most of the business owners, they've been the operator. So they have been in the middle of everything in their business. And they get to a point where it's like friction starts to happen. And they think to themselves, I am feeling burned out. Right now, the rate of change in business, the rate of change in the world, in the economy is happening so fast and so rapid. And, with a lot of the CEOs I talk to, it's hard to keep up. They're trying to learn things. They're trying to figure out like how to use technology or how to use AI and what's going to happen. And it gets so frustrating, and they start to feel stuck. They start to feel like imposter syndrome creeps in, that self-doubt creeps in. Even the feeling of, I'm getting to the point where I don't want to be involved in everything anymore. I don't want to be involved in every decision, but I also don't know really how to build a team. Like, I have a team, but I don't know the next steps to take to really get everybody into alignment so that I can start backing out of stuff. And I think that feeling of being stuck is a choice. If you've ever, we always have the freedom to choose how we look at things, what our perspective is on things. So many times over, when people come to me and I work with them and they say, I just feel stuck, it's because they're doing things that aren't in alignment with what they really truly want to do. They're trying to do too many things. And I think the one thing that it comes back to is just really defining, what is it that you want? I think, I do a lot with personal growth. I am a high performance coach and certified high performance coach. And I do a lot with personal development. And I always tell people, personal development and really, having that agency over your life and what you're doing is so important. And it can't be because people are like, business is business and, personal is personal, and it's not. There is overlap. And that's where, focusing on, what is it that you truly want for your life? What is it that you truly want for your business? Defining that first, and then starting to build everything else in. Like, who are the people you need on your team? Who do you need to surround yourself with? What is that future that you want to define and build? And I think that's when they start to shift their perspective away from feeling stuck, feeling caged, feeling like, I can't get out of this. I don't have control over what I'm doing. Everything is just swirling so fast around me, into really defining and building that life that they want and then living into it.
That's very interesting. I would love for you, Theresa, to share a story with us about perhaps one of your clients that, again, you don't have to give us a name, in terms of how you helped them. What was the process? What was that aha moment? And then I just want to also share, and Joseph has heard, and our audience has heard this before, I did the opposite. I started my career as an entrepreneur, and then flipped into working for someone else. And I can tell you, it was not as easy as it sounds. And I think it goes back to whether you do it, you're in corporate and you flip out to being an entrepreneur or vice versa. I do think some things are similar, yet some things are different.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just more of a comment. But I'd love for you to share a story with our listeners so they can perhaps see themselves a little bit in that, something they can take out away from that.
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
NASA is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
So I have a client that I've been actually working with for 10 years, and he built one of his businesses he built 40 years ago. And when I met him, he had had it for 30 years, and he was working on building 3 other businesses at the same time. And all of his businesses, he was in the middle of it. And when I started working with him, and they were all going backwards, instead of growing, they were actually shrinking. And, you know, he was at the time, he had just turned 60. And he was like, I don't have the energy to sink into this that I sank into it when I first started. And he said, I don't know if I should close. I don't know what I need to do next. All I know is I just need to work harder, because if I'm going to keep this going and keep making money, I just need to work harder. And I had asked him one question. I said, what is it that you truly love to do in your businesses? What is it that you truly love to do just in general? And if whatever that is, could you do it all day, every day? And he couldn't answer the question. And for like weeks, he was like, Theresa, I don't have an answer to this. I don't know what I love anymore. I don't know, I don't even know what I want to do with this. So we kind of started there, and we said, all right, let's just take this down to the foundation. Let's take this down to grassroots, and rebuild. So we looked at it and we said, all right, let's kind of zoom out a bit and go 5 years in the future. What are you doing? And we just worked on really, really redefining who he was, because he forgot who he was. All he had, his identity was completely tied to the business. And now the business is tanking and he doesn't know what to do. And he's feeling like, I'm responsible for all these people that work for me, and I feel like a failure. And at the same time, I'm also 60 years old. Maybe I just need to just get out of everything and just stop. So we really took it down to, what is it that you like? Let's just think about how you want to feel every day. What makes you feel like you're alive? Like, where does that aliveness come from? And then we said, okay, what are the things that really mean something? These meaningful contributions that you want to do, because his business was always very purpose-based. And we kind of started from there, and then started to really define the structure or the vision, which is the structure. We started to put the structure in place and say, okay, here's the team that you need. Here's how we're going to grow the businesses. But then also, here's how you're going to build in and identify whether it's employees or anybody external who can take these businesses over as you want to exit in the next 10 years or so. And we really started to build that out. And today, his businesses, the one business grew 86%. He has a succession plan in place for a successor to start taking over. He has 4 businesses. They're all connected. They're all branded together. And he is now, like, he played in the World Cup of field hockey over in South Africa, like at 70 years old, and like had like really defined what his dream was, because he didn't have that before, and really got clear on that. And he goes on vacation. He wasn't really vacationing before. He has, like I said, he's got this succession plan. We built up his teams so that he is out of the day-to-day. And he really is living into the life that he truly wanted to define. So
that story touched on your comment from earlier about how you define being stuck, the misalignment of what I want to do, and I forgot how you phrased it exactly, but so that was interesting. What I also heard during that story was something I've experienced with people I've helped over time. They're running a business for 20, 30, 40, whatever years, and they've been doing it in a certain way. And to your much earlier comment about the speed of business today and the technology of evolution, I think there's an element of fear. Not just being stuck, but there's an element of fear. I don't know how to do that. I've never done it that way. This is the way it's always worked. And then you get the result of, well, my business is now down, 60, 70, 80%, as opposed to going up 60, 70, 80%. So I think what I'm hearing, and you tell me, this is your profession, addressing that fear, realigning, trying to, take those steps, whatever those might be. And maybe you can help us figure out what some of those baby steps are, where I'm running a business for all these years, and now how do I grow it? What do I do? What's my next step? Like, what are those steps?
Fear is and you brought up fear, and absolutely fear is behind everything. And it's that fear of the unknown. And the thing that, and it sounds so simple, but it's so complicated, is that you have to get really comfortable being uncomfortable. It is the ticket it's the admission ticket to being an entrepreneur, to really doing the things that most people won't do. And it's really, what it really comes down to is the willingness to get uncomfortable and to say, you know what, this is unknown. And Paula Abdul said it so eloquently, and I'm not going to exactly repeat it the way she said it, but I think it's just it's so good. Is she said, not many people are willing to go that extra mile and get comfortable with being uncomfortable, get into the unknown. But that extra mile is wide open because there's barely any traffic. So I think the first thing to do is to say, I'm afraid, I have this fear, but I'm gonna, I believe in my ability to figure it out. And, I do run in, I think probably everybody, whether they wanted to admit it or not, but fear was the thing that was definitely holding them back. And I think once we get into, people say false evidence appearing real, which is what fear is, get out of the, why are you afraid? And I've asked them these questions, is where is that fear coming from? Let's unpack it. Let's say, where is it coming from? Most of the time it comes from a belief that they have. It comes from that self-talk, that doubt that they have in their head. And it's you got to get out of your head, and you have to just say, okay, this is what I want, and I'm just going to commit to taking a step. So with business owners that have been doing things, a certain way for a long time, and they're afraid to make that change, the thing that we start to do is we start to unpack, where is that fear coming from, to understand, what is it? Is it because the rest of your industry is doing it one way? Is it because you don't understand how to do something? And most of the time they start to see that, okay, you know what's going on in my head? It's just a tape. And it's coming from a belief of, typically, I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough experience, or, whatever it is. And we start to unpack that, and we start to reverse it with, what are the facts here? Let's just deal with the facts. The facts is that you have this big dream. And most of the time it's because, what this stuckness, and it comes from fear, and it comes when we start to unpack it, we start to uncover there's a lack of congruence between what it is that you want, what it is that you say that you want, and the actions that you're taking. And there's so much friction there that happens. So if you want to grow and your business isn't growing, friction. If your business is growing and you don't want to grow, and you're like, no, this is the way I always want to do it, there's going to be friction. And when there's friction, that's when growth can't happen. So it's that unpacking of, okay, where is this fear? Where is it coming from? And really and this is the personal development piece, is you want growth, you want to do this, but you have to be willing to take the action. So then we start to develop, okay, here are the simple steps. I mean, defining the vision, that's number one. Defining, like, what is it that you want to do? What are you aiming for? Because most of the time when people are stuck also, they don't know what they're aiming for. And just achieving 7 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures, whatever, that revenue, that typically is not enough. That's not what they want. What they really want is that sense of aliveness, that sense of freedom, that, that ability to have agency over their life and what they're doing, and cover and unpack the lies that are in our head. We start to build the plan and move forward.
It's going to jump on one point there before Mary takes the mic. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the money. I think many people are focused on money as their goal, as opposed to anything else in their life. And that's sometimes what throws them a curveball, right? Because there's more to life than just the dollars in the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I've heard that, many times as well. It's funny. Right before we were recording now, I was on a call with Diana Feinstein. She was also on our podcast, which we released her episode. And she was talking about a lot of the things that you said, in terms of, like, she was talking about identifying the gaps, and then so you identify them, but now you have to be willing to execute on opening up a door and maybe doing things differently, because, like, that saying, if you keep doing things the same way and expecting different results, that's insanity. And I know, again, as a former business owner, that can be like a habit, right? Just like any habit, just like starting an exercise program. It's the habit of doing things the same way. And I believe this, that many of us, or some of us, are comfortable doing the same things all the time because that's what we know, versus, oh, I'm going to try doing this over here, which I don't really know well. I mean, I find myself doing that also. However, those of us that are lifelong learners and that understand we do have to keep up with technology, we do have to keep up with how business in some way, shape, or form has changed over the years. I mean, there's some basic principles that haven't changed in terms of the importance of relationships and, having a pipeline, sales pipeline. How we get to that sales pipeline may have changed a little bit, but I think there's some true blue over hundreds and hundreds of years that I think will still remain. Those that have been successful again. But what is that measure of success? Like Joseph said earlier, money, you talked about money. Maybe that's not the entire metric, but I do think people go to that right away. They say, I want to make this up $2 million. And that's what I want to do. And maybe they think of an idea, but that's not really what they're passionate about. And I think passion too comes into play about what people, who are completely fulfilled, and also letting go, right? You talked about the gentleman that, had 3-4 businesses, and he was always in the middle of that. I think, again, I mean, I even see that inside companies where people hold on to things so tightly and they walk around saying, oh, I'm so exhausted, I'm so busy. but they just don't want to let go and bring someone else in that could help them because they're afraid of, I don't know, like that could be a whole different episode. I know what they're probably afraid of, but it's still very similar, I think, to what we're talking about, today.
Totally.
Yeah. So Theresa, what have you found to be among the top 3, perhaps, elements or challenges for business owners to really shift their thinking?
Top challenges that they have
that they've had.
Yeah.
It could be more than 3 or less than 3. I'm just curious about that.
I think the first one is definitely building team, for sure. Finding the right people. Think that you have an org chart and you just need to fill it with a person.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is that you really need to understand the role. And a role is different than a job description.
Mm.
And so often they're like, okay, well, I'm going to delegate, so I'm just going to put a person in there.
Yeah.
And they don't understand who is it that you really need. And who is it that you really need? They need to align with what is it that you want? What is it that you believe in? What is it that you stand for? And you need to make sure that you have the right person, the right person in that role. So I think that's one. I mean, especially like in the restaurant industry, retail industry. I mean, it's constant just trying to get people in the door, and then it's not even getting them in, then it's keeping them. So I think that's the biggest struggle, because with the business owners that I work with, they don't necessarily know how to lead. They know how to manage. And it's 2 different things. So when they're trying to build the team, they're just either expecting that people will just understand what to do, or they don't necessarily know how to explain in the way that it needs to be explained to get people to do things the way that they do them. So I think that's a giant struggle.
Do you also think that it's, like they say, say I'm really good at sales, I'm making this up. So do I necessarily need to find someone exactly like that? Or do I need someone to complement me maybe in something I'm not good at or I don't want to do anymore? I mean, we can never have enough salespeople. So that was not a good example.
Yeah.
But you know where I'm going?
Yes, I do. So it depends on the role. I mean, really, so people think, I always talk about there's 4 different types of CEOs. And you can have somebody who's really good at operations. You can have somebody that's really good with finance. You can have somebody who's really good with marketing, or you have somebody who's really good with sales. And depending on the type of role, like we have a general manager, he is a general manager at his restaurant, and his general manager, like the business owner himself, he's very good with sales. He is an idea person. He is not a detail person. So what did he do? He got a general manager who is the same as him. So then it was like, like all these details in the structure was missing. So yes, a lot of times they're hiring people that are, instead of, again, looking at the role and saying, what are the people skills that I need in this role? And especially when you are, and this is one of the things that I do, is really identifying who is going to be your second in command, who is going to be your COO. So depending on the type of CEO that you are, you want someone who's going to complement you, because that person is going to be able to understand the vision and the strategy, be able to execute. So if you're hiring somebody who's exactly like you and you're terrible at those things, yeah, you're going to have a big problem. And that is one of the things that, yes, absolutely. You want to, in certain ways, you want to have somebody who's going to complement your strengths, but in other ways, you want to have somebody who has different strengths than you have. You always want to have somebody who's going to co-create with you. You want to have somebody who's going to be able to see the vision and then say, okay, here's how we're going to do it. You want to have people who you can collaborate with, but then you also want to have those constructors, the people who can actually carry out the tasks. And I think that's where a lot of business owners get stuck, is that they're trying to find somebody who's like them, but that's not necessarily what they need. So that's definitely a big one. I mean, cash flow is a big one with rising costs, tariffs. I mean, his businesses, this client that I keep talking about, he deals a lot with international business, and with the tariffs and everything that's happening, it's stuff that we've never had to deal with necessarily before. And, with cost of food going up and trying to navigate all of this, you have to learn to think differently, and you have to be willing to think differently and willing to do things differently. And I think that's another challenge that they have, because they don't necessarily, they're like, I'm not really sure how to navigate this. I need somebody who can give me a blueprint, so that, if I need to do my financials a little bit differently, or I need to manage cash flow a little bit differently, I need some help with that, because I don't necessarily need to know. And I think that's a big one. This is the emotional, intellectual humility that they need to have to be able to say, I don't have all the answers, but I know I can figure it out, or I know that I can find someone to help me. So I think those are definitely two big challenges that business owners have. And then I think there's so many, but I think another top one is just the whole technology piece. And really, my husband works for a huge software company, and we're constantly having conversations about what they're doing with AI, how they're incorporating it, what's happening to their to the staff. Like, what are they doing, with staffing? Or people getting cut, or are they reskilling? So I think with small businesses, I think it's just from the technology standpoint, how do we even use this? The rest of the industry is telling us to do this, but is that really what's going to work for our business? So I think that would be like the top third one.
So I know we're running out of time here, so I'm going to flip the last question over to Mary. But before she does, what's your superpower?
My superpower. My superpower is definitely, I love people, and I have the ability, I always seek to find the greatness in others. I always seek to find, and normally that greatness is, well, not normally, it's always found in the imperfection. So I think my superpower is definitely seeing people and really pulling that greatness out of them.
So our last question really aligns with what Joseph asked. It's slightly different. So you've done corporate work, marketing. You talked about different things you've done in your life. Why do you wake up every day and do what you do?
Because back in the day, I didn't really have somebody who believed in my dreams and who wanted to help me push them forward. So I do what I do every day because I want to make those dreams come true for the people that I work with, or even the people that are listening to my podcast. Because everybody should be able to do that. Everybody should have their dreams come true, to be able to define them and then have them come true. So I wake up every day and I do what I do, even on the days that I've wanted to quit and things aren't going right. And I'm telling my husband I'm crying and I'm like, I don't know if I could do this anymore. It's because what I always come back to is really helping people to achieve their dreams, and really helping people to, like, again, tap into that greatness and be the best version of themselves.
That's a great answer. How can individuals get in touch with you, Theresa, if they are interested in learning more about what you do or they need your help?
Sure. So I think the primary thing, people normally contact me on LinkedIn. I used to send people a lot to the website, but I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I actually do a live there every Thursday. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm just Theresa Cantley on LinkedIn.
That's great. Joseph, you want to bring us home?
Sure thing, Mary. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Mary, for helping coordinate today's podcast. And Theresa, thanks for sharing your time, your insights, and ideas for our listeners. To all our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Please take a minute to vote us up, give us a star, whatever the platform whatever the platform does these days. Share us with your friends and family. And we look forward to next week's episode of another Prime Life podcast. Until then, have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.